Identical twins of Reddit. What is the best/worst mix-up you've experienced? Story 1. My twin brother was president of the class, and I was vice president our junior year. When it came time for after-school re-election speeches for senior year, my brother completely forgot and walked home. I did my speech for vice president, then borrowed a friend's shirt and made up a presidential speech for him on the spot. We both won. Story 2. I'm technically a fraternal twin, but my brother and I looked identical until we were about 13. Last year, when I was 17, my mom and I were going through a photo album and came across pictures of us in the hospital after we were born. I asked my mom which one I was, because I couldn't tell, and she pointed to one of the incubators and said, "You're twin number 1?" This meant my brother was twin number 2, as they often dub twins right after birth to keep them straight. I took the photo out of the album, and on the back was written twin number 1 and twin number 2, but my name was on twin number 2, and my brother's name was beside twin number 1. I showed my mom, and she was convinced it was a mistake. We showed my dad, and he was confused as well. It actually turns out that I was supposed to be twin number 2, and I went 17 years thinking I was the older twin, when the entire time I was twin number 2, slightly younger and supposed to have been named what my brother is named. Story 3. My twin brother and I once used our identical looks at a Christmas party. My brother was supposed to play Santa, so he went off to find him. I stayed in the building and put on the suit. I went to the party. Most of my brother's church hadn't met me, and the kids all thought they knew who I was. 5 or 10 minutes later, my brother came in saying, "Sorry guys, I couldn't find the costume," and then all the kids lost their minds. Story 4. My cousin married a twin, and one night, after she and her husband had recently gotten married, she was drinking and confused her husband with his brother. Luckily, he stopped her when he realized she was confused. She was so embarrassed. We still poke fun at her for it. Story 5. I studied a second language, and my sister didn't, so she occasionally had professors spot her on campus and talk to her in a language she didn't understand. The worst for her was when a friend saw 2 separate graduation photos of us, thought they were both of her, and complimented her on her prettier second photo, the photo of me. Story 6. There was a teacher at my high school who had lost an arm and also had a twin brother. Sometimes, people who didn't know he had a twin would run into the twin and freak out that he had an arm. Apparently, the guy would jest with them and tell them about arm transplants and stuff before fessing up. Story 7. My dad is one. He got slapped by his brother's girlfriend once at a dance. Then his girlfriend slapped him. Then his mom slapped him. All of this happened within a minute. Story 8. My best identical twin story. My twin brother and I were in the same high school economics class. The teacher was a complete pain. My brother was an annoying, immature guy. They actually got along perfectly, no joke. Everyone in the class thought he was funny, but I was quieter and more polite. One day, we switched seats. He was being his usual annoying self and getting destroyed by the teacher. She didn't think he was funny at all. At the end of class, he says to me, "Wow, she hates you." Story 9. My grandmother had a twin, and they both became elementary school teachers at the same school. Every morning and afternoon, the school required teachers to sign in and out. My grandmother happened to get pregnant, but her sister did not. They had the habit of one signing them both in the morning and the other signing them out in the evening. Eventually, a security guard went up to the principal and said, "I think I'm losing my mind. This woman keeps coming in pregnant in the morning and leaving not pregnant in the evening." Story 10. When I was 16, I stole some liquor from a grocery store. I got away with it, and my twin brother went there 10 minutes later. He ended up being blamed because they somehow knew something had been stolen. He got banned from the store and was pissed for months. Story 11. My identical twin brother and I were both in the army in the same corps, and we ended up knowing a lot of the same people. One day at work, we had a new master sergeant walking around, and he saw me and yelled my name. I treated him like a random master sergeant because I had no clue who he was. He didn't like this since he had been my brother's old platoon sergeant. Thinking I was disrespecting him, he made me do push-ups. When we finally cleared the air, he was pretty awesome, and we both had a laugh. Story 12. Not a twin, but I experienced a pretty awkward situation with twins. I visited my hometown a few years after leaving for college and saw two cops sitting in their car eating doner kebab. One of them was a girl I was friends with in high school. We got along pretty well and even hooked up a few times, but I hadn't seen her since graduation. She always liked messing around, so I tapped on the window, and when she opened it, I said something like, "Eating doner while sitting around is a great way to waste taxpayers' money. You lazy ass. Go find some criminals." Well, she wasn't amused at all, and neither was the other cop. They got out of the car while I stuttered until I finally mentioned her name. I then learned that she actually had a twin sister who went to another school. She laughed about it, but the other cop wasn't a fan of me, so I awkwardly left the scene as fast as I could. Story 13. My sister and I found out that we were definitely genetically identical twins from our school blood drive. The Red Cross called me up, intending to yell at me for perjury and for donating twice under false pretenses because my DNA matched two different donor samples. I then told them that my twin had also donated that day, to which they just nervously laughed, apologized, and hung up. Story 14. Two of my best friends are twin brothers, not technically identical, but close enough that no one can tell them apart until you get to know them. One time, a girl came up to one of them at the club, all angry, and threw a drink in his face. He had just shown up too. His brother had apparently slept with her and never called her, or something to that effect. I thought it was pretty hilarious. Story 15. Well, I don't know if this counts because my brother and I aren't twins. We just look a lot alike. During my sophomore year and his junior year in high school, we had the same Spanish class. Our teacher got us confused all semester. For the finals speaking portion, she would go into the hall and have each student go out to do their part. I went out and did mine, and later my brother and I switched shirts, and I went out again to do it for him. He wasn't very good at Spanish. She fell for it, and the worst part is I got him a better score than I got for myself.